Hey guys, today we're going to be reading Diary of a Wimpy Kid, Wimpy Racing. I hope you guys like the thumbnail I made for this one. I think it's pretty cool. But yeah, anyway, thank you for all the support lately. I really appreciate it, and I think reading these longer fanfics has been really paying off. And stay tuned next week where I read one of my favorite fanfictions of all time. Like, you're going to have to wait and see what it is. Do you remember I did say the name at the end of the fanfiction, so I guess just stick to the end of the video if you want to see what it is. Like and subscribe to support me, and if you like Wimpy Kid, then this is the right channel to subscribe to. Anyway, I'm done plugging. Hope you enjoy. Let's get into it. Bye. Sunday. I used to tell myself that when I got my driver's license, I'd be tearing up the streets in the BMW or Mercedes and impressing all the girls. Unfortunately, when I did get my license, Mom insisted that her old Dodge Caravan made for the perfect first car. To make matters worse, she's been forcing me to take Manny to school in it. Are we there yet? Still, I think the absolute worst part of this pile of junk is that I can't afford anything better. Mom told me that if I want another car, I have to buy it myself, and since the Caravan's only worth about $2,000, that probably won't be happening. It doesn't help that some rich idiots like Bryce Anderson are living that fantasy I mentioned. I wonder if he ever thinks about what I'm going through. Here's the thing. Girls dig guys with cool cars, whereas my Caravan makes me look like a guy who spoons with his mother. Bryce's parents are loaded, but mine aren't, and I never thought I'd be able to afford something cool until I saw this commercial on TV. It's King of the Mountain tournament time again. Do you have what it takes to challenge the current king, Terry Hill? If so, you could be on your way to winning $10,000. I probably should have switched the channel, but the huge reward had me enticed. If you haven't heard of King of the Mountain, it's a street racing event that's held twice a year. Roderick actually tried to enter the last tournament, but Mom put the brakes on his plan pretty quickly. If I ever catch you engaging in such reckless behavior, I'm taking away your car keys. That should have discouraged me from even thinking of entering, but Mom and Dad went on a 2-week romantic getaway to the Bahamas, and they left me in charge of Roderick and Manny. I guess they finally realized I'm responsible enough to be left alone. With Mom and Dad out of the way, I called up Rowley so he could help me brush up on my driving skills. I told Rowley to race against me in Formula 1 racing, but I ended up wiping the floor with him. I told him to go hard on me, but I don't think he understood. Bad fart ahead. Wahahaha. After I beat Rowley 10 times in a row, I decided that he wasn't challenging enough, but I proceeded to race against the AI on extra hard mode. But even then, there was no questioning who the better driver was. Diaper rash ahead. I beat the AI 5 times before I got bored and decided I was a good enough driver to enter the tournament. But this meant I had to find a sub-suitable car, as my Caravan isn't exactly built for speed. My initial plan was to use the fastest vehicle my family owned, Roderick's van. Unfortunately, Roderick wouldn't let me borrow it. If you even touch my van without my permission, I'll make you regret the day you fell out of Mom's ass. Understood? On second thought, I'm kind of glad Roderick wouldn't lend me his van, because I later read that some guy died while competing in the tournament, and he had a van like Roderick's. Plus, Roderick does all the maintenance on his van himself, and I'm pretty sure he isn't a trained mechanic, so who knows what would happen if I drove that van. Then Rowley told me that he had something I could borrow for the tournament. I was surprised by that, since Rowley doesn't have a driver's license, but I thought his dad might have bought a Porsche or something. Then I saw what he was talking about, and I realized I shouldn't have gotten my hopes up. Whee! Apart from the fact that Rowley looked like an idiot in his go-kart, I'd seen people enter pickup trucks and vans to King of the Mountain, and I knew something like that would get absolutely crushed. So I went home and I called up the exotic car rental downtown instead. Wait, $500 an hour? Listen, I only got $75 and I need something to rent for the next week. Are you sure you haven't got anything in that price range? No, don't hang up. After this, I decided to give up and just enter the Caravan. I was pretty sure I wasn't even going to make the qualifying round until I received a call from Uncle Gary. And believe it or not, but he was actually offering me a free car. Alright, Greg, I won this Nissan in a trade, and I've got to get rid of it as soon as possible. Is it okay if I hide it at your place for the next few days? I won't even charge you. Uncle Gary showed up a few hours later with the car. I thought for sure that he had some boring sedan, but he actually got a Nissan Skyline. Don't ask me how he found one of the best cars in the most of the racing games I've played, but I'm glad he did. Uncle Gary told me I could do whatever I wanted with the Skyline, so of course I was going to enter into the tournament. My opponents won't know what's hit him until it's too late. Monday. I decided to drive the Skyline to school so I could show it off to the girls. But only then did I realize that it had a manual transmission and I'm not sure how they work. Plus the steering wheel was on the wrong side and all the controls were reversed. All that took me 15 minutes to figure out, and I still don't think I've got the hang of it. I decided to give Rowley a ride to school so I could show him how cool my new car was. But he wasn't as impressed as I thought he'd be. Why didn't you get her Volkswagen Beetle? Josh has a Beetle, it's the coolest thing ever. Dude, Beetles, I want a Beetle when I turn 16. That's actually a dope-ass car. Tried to explain Rally to the Beetle were girls' cars. Okay, Rally. Okay, Greg, nobody likes you. But I don't think he understood me. And if that wasn't bad enough, I ended up attracting the wrong kind of attention with the Skyline. Wow, is that a real GTR? Believe it or not, but the guys were actually bombarding me with questions about the Skyline. I then made the mistake of telling them I borrowed it from Uncle Gary, which led them to believing he's way cooler than he really is. At least the guys were paying attention to me, as the girls automatically thought my car was bad because it's a Nissan. I should have asked Uncle Gary if he could get me a Ferrari or a Lambo instead. No, it's way better than you think. It'll have you know that I could beat Bryce's BMW in a race anytime. Doesn't change the fact that it's a crappy Nissan. Those are cheap cars. Dude, my dad has a Nissan. What the hell? I bet those girls will change their mind once they learn that I qualified for the tournament. Though I suppose that's not much of a feat given who I was up against. I thought the free admission was good until I discovered who my opponents were. Hello! In addition to Leland, I was also racing against Mr. Era and Lion Feast. I had no idea that either of them were into street racing, but they were also tempted by this huge reward, I guess. Even though I've only been driving for about a year, I was certain I'd crush these guys because I had the fastest car. I didn't mention this earlier, but the qualifying round was actually an elimination race, where the guy who finished last would be eliminated after each lap. And right away, I knew that wasn't going to happen to me. Actually, I got lucky on the first lap because Leland crashed almost immediately. Don't ask me what he was trying to do. Then Leon Feast decides to play dirty. He'd hidden one of his goons at the back of the truck and armed with a fire extinguisher. You could probably see where this went. However, Leon's plan backfired on him because I didn't know where the Skyline's windshield wiper switch was. While I was trying to find it, I rammed him off the side of the road and eliminated him. This left just me and Mr. Era. I guess I'm not as good of a driver as I thought I was, because that was the only explanation for why his bulky SUV was able to keep up with me. Well, until he flipped over on a sharp turn. A little help, and thanks to that, I qualified for the tournament. Hope Mom doesn't find out about this, but she probably won't, because I entered under a pseudonym. And here's your second winner of the night, Grimlawn driving in the Shredder. He's definitely shredded the competition tonight. After the race, I learned that there were 8 qualifying rounds, and that 4 of them were being run today. So I ended up sticking around so I could find out who I'd be up against. There were a few cute girls competing, but the biggest surprise was definitely this. Yogurt Man 69 passes up ahead. But what's this? The van guy passes him on the final straight. This means your last winner of the night is the van guy in exploded diaper. What an amazing move. I knew Roderick wanted to enter King of the Mountain, but I never thought he'd actually follow through on it. Yes, the reward was too big for him to ignore. Though now I'm worried Mom's going to find out that we're both competing in the tournament. I mean, Roderick's put no effort into hiding who he is, and it's only a matter of time before Mom discovers what he's up to. And to make matters worse, I know I have to worry about racing against Roderick because I know he's not going to go easy on me. All I can hope for is that he gets put in a different bracket for me and he gets eliminated in the first round. Tuesday. The girls still haven't noticed how good of a driver I am, though I'd chalk that up to them not knowing about King of the Mountain. Hey girls, guess who just qualified for King of the Mountain? King of the what? They do broadcast King of the Mountain on TV, but I don't think they show it on enough channels. Seriously, that TV station airs that The Bachelor should drop it and start airing King of the Mountain instead, because these girls don't know what they're missing out on. Speaking of which, I decided to watch the rest of the qualifying races to see if there's anyone else I had to look out for, and unfortunately there was. I didn't know Manny could drive, but he's probably even more dangerous than Roderick, and his performance in the qualifying round is anything to go by. I mean, he basically won by throwing things at his rival until they crashed, so who knows what he'll try to pull off against me. Manny's definitely gonna pull a Glock on Greg mid-race. Wednesday. Today's the day of the tournament, for the tournament's first round, and I told Rowley to bring some of the cute girls so I could introduce the wonders of King of the Mountain. Fortunately, he said they were all declined after he realized I was the guy with the crappy Nissan, which led him coming up with an alternative. Riley tried to convince me that all the girls love the superstar like Joshy, but I just told him to sit at the back of the bleachers and pretend he didn't exist. And if my luck couldn't get any worse, I learned that I'd be racing against Roderick today. He was the only one I'd be up against. So, Heather, you're looking pretty as ever tonight. I'll just have you know I'm single. Oh, great, you again? I'll have you know that I will not date you. If seeing Heather Hills was weird, the next guy was probably one of the last people I expect to see at a street racing event. So, Heffley, are you ready to see the advantage of brain over brawn? Even more surprising was the fact that Alex was fast. I thought he was way too short to drive. Don't ask me how he out-accelerated us from the start. There's one good thing about the actual tournament races is that they're based around points rather than eliminations. Basically, you get more points the higher you finish, and by the end of the second lap, I was in second thanks to the power of the Skyline. Alex was in first, and I found out why because we were given a break at the halfway point. He got a booster seat. Luckily for me, Alex isn't very street smart and he left his car unlocked. While he wasn't looking, I bought some scissors from a concession stand, cut out his booster seat, and chucked it into a dumpster. Just as I expected, this had a significant effect on his performance. And they're off again. But wait, the logician has stalled at the starting line. He was doing so well in the first half. Looks like the real race is now between Gremlin and the van guy. Heather caught up with me quick by the end of lap 3. My quick thinking saw her out of the race for good. Smash. Screech. With both Heather and Alex out, I overtook Roderick at the beginning of the 4th lap. I thought this would be another easy victory for me, so I know with Fragley standing in the middle of the road. I thought Fragley couldn't get any weirder in high school, but he somehow managed the impossible. Lately, he's become obsessed with drinking tons of coffee and going on sugar-crazed runs. He's on the news every other week for ending in absurd places, and I'm not even sure why no one hasn't tried to stop him yet. Unfortunately, the road was too narrow for me to safely pass Fragley, and my only options were to wait for him to move or to run for cover. The first choice meant I'd lose my lead over Roderick, and since Fragley only weighs about 90 pounds soaking wet, I thought I'd send him flying if I drove into him, and that's exactly what I did. I thought that was the last I'd see of Fragley, but he actually landed on my hood, and once he saw me inside, he went completely insane. Wanna see my secret freckle? Scream! Because of that, I now had to pay attention to the road while not looking at Fragley. At the same time, as a result, Roderick overtook me and I finished second, with Fragley still serving as the world's worst hood ornament. Here comes Gremlin to take second place. He'll be joining the van guy in semifinals for King of the Mountain. Things didn't get much better after the race, with Roderick acting like he was the only one who made it to the semifinals. Oh, and he kept trying to convince me that his van was better than the Skyline. So your Nerdmobile's got 2 turbos and still can't beat my 15-year-old van? Ha ha ha. Remember how I said Roderick does all the maintenance on his van himself? Now I'm starting to believe he's actually modifying it to make it faster. If the embarrassment of getting beaten by a rusty old van wasn't enough, I later learned that Manny had also qualified for the semifinals. If my life couldn't get any worse, I found out that Patty Farrell also qualified. I'm now starting to doubt if I could win this. Thursday. My day got off to a pretty bad start when I learned that my Skyline was no longer the coolest car in the world. Did you see that old man van smoke the Skyline last night? That thing is fast. Oh boy, this is making me want to buy my own van. For once, I was glad the girls didn't watch King of the Mountain, because they didn't seem aware of what happened last night. At least I thought they were. Hey Gremlin, can I ask you something? I don't think Holly has ever called me by my real name, but at least she doesn't think I'm Fragley anymore. I thought that she was going to tell me about how dreamy Roderick was, but she actually wanted me to talk about Heather. I just want to thank you for not letting Heather win. She claims she'll use the prize money to study abroad, but I know she just wants to go on a huge shopping spree. Oh, sure, no problem. I just wanted to win, but hey, you're welcome. Wait, Reg's real name is Gremlin? Gremlin? Okay, interesting. I then asked Holly if she really wasn't mad at me for what I did, and the resulting conversation made me realize we've got a lot more in common than I thought. Why would I be mad at you? I'll have you know that Heather put hair remover in my shampoo and I nearly ended up bald. Thanks for helping me take revenge on her. Really, the guy in the white van who won the race is my brother, and he won't stop rubbing that in my face. Maybe I should try that on him. You could try, but I'm not sure if he uses shampoo. And have you seen the other winner? My little sister Hannah's rooting for him, even though she's been cheating left and right. Oh my goodness, him. I know he doesn't look the part, but he's also my brother. He gets away with all kinds of stuff, not because he's mom's favorite, and I'm not surprised he's doing the same here. And if things couldn't get any better, Holly told me many of her friends were happy about Heather's defeat and that they'll probably go watch the next race. Pretty excited about this because Holly's on the cheer squad and I'll have a gaggle of cheerleaders supporting me. I'd say this is more important than ever, given what I saw later on TV. I'm not sure why the TV station only invited the first place finishers, because I really could have used some free publicity. They showed several clips of Ronnie, geez, I meant to say Roderick and Manny. Oh, that's Ronnie and Roderick, Manny, Ronnie. Sorry. In previous race and asked them how they felt about the upcoming semi-final race. That fat ploopy bubby is going down tomorrow night. I'll be cranking it up full diaper. Those kids will be chasing my taillights all night long. It's a good thing the reporter simply dismissed Manny mentioning his awful nicknames for me, because things can get worse if somebody finds out who Bubby is. Friday, the semifinals were tonight, and I was a little worried about who I was up against, but Holly and her friends showed up, and I was thrilled to see them supporting me. Roderick likes to tell me he's popular with the girls, but I didn't see any of them flanking his van. In fact, they only seemed to have invited his bandmates to watch him. Good luck out there, Rod. Manny didn't even have anyone supporting him. I guess he's so confident about winning that he doesn't need moral support, though I wouldn't rule out most of his fans being in bed when the race took place. Anyways, the TV station was conducting interviews before the race, and I finally got some much-needed publicity. Oh, these guys don't know who they're up against. I've made it this far, and I'm not giving up just yet. Roderick and Manny were also interviewed, but Roderick just advertised his band, and Manny accused everyone who didn't support him of being a bunch of ugly little ploopies. And if that wasn't enough, I ran into Patty Farrell, who I'd only forgotten about because I was too busy worrying about Manny. Well, if it isn't Greg Heffley, the toxic male himself, but you don't see anything wrong with street racing, do you? If you hate street racing so much, why are you here? Or do you want to smash me up? Huh? Patty told me that it was none of my business, began criticizing my decision to invite the cheerleaders, claiming that their outfits were too revealing and that our school should replace the female cheer squad with a male one. Okay. I tried to get her to shut up, but my attempts were futile until she realized who else she'd be racing against. Oh my goodness, am I only racing against Heffleys? I hate my life. Seeing Patty's reaction gave me the idea of ganging up on her. Roger agreed to help me after I told him Patty was the second biggest nerd at Crossland, and that we were going to use Manny's cheating strategy to our advantage. Our plan involved letting Manny and Patty take the lead so we could pelt her with his projectiles until she crashed. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. That was the first time I'd ever seen Manny do something useful, but I should have known it was too good to be true. Even after Patty crashed, he continued to throw stuff everywhere, including a spiky tinfoil ball that landed on the ground. I managed to avoid it, but Roderick wasn't so lucky, and this proved to be his downfall. I knew Manny was a cheater, but I never thought he'd sabotage his own brother so he could win. Roderick must have wanted me to avenge him, because when I passed him on the second lap, he was actually cheering me on. Kill him, Greg! Take him down for me! Fortunately, that was much easier said than done. I was already surprised that Manny could drive, and I never expected him to actually be good at it. The worst part was, on this twisty road, he was way faster than me, because his tiny car was much more agile than my Skyline. Thanks to the sheer amount of corners, Manny had the most points by the end of the second lap. I knew I'd lose at this rate. Then I noticed the road was littered with Manny's projectile, and that I could use them to give him a taste of his own medicine. So I grabbed some of the larger items and throw them at Manny until I finally hit him. What is that? Is that like a... I don't know what that is. This hit was enough to knock Manny unconscious, causing him to crash in a ditch. I thought I'd won the race and the $10,000 reward, but my satisfaction was short-lived. And the Gremlin's done it. He's beaten the best drivers in Plainview and earned the title match against the king of the mountain, Terry Hill. But let me tell you, Terry Hill's one bad motherfucker. Anyway, I totally forgot about Terry Hill, and I was expecting the race against him to be a walk in the park, given how useless my opponents were, but I underestimated him because he kept out-accelerating me from the start, and I struggled to keep up with him after that. It's probably gonna be like Uncle Gary. I guarantee you he's Uncle Gary. Or like the guy Uncle Gary sold the Nissan from or something. I didn't think Terry Hill would be that fast since he only had a Mustang, and the ones I've driven in racing games are mostly lower tier cars. But I should have expected that from the guy who's won the previous 3 King of the Mountain tournaments and who's never lost a race, even though I had the better car. I was still falling behind thanks to my lack of experience, and I knew I need a miracle if I wanted to win this. Luckily, Manny seemed to have recovered from getting hit in the head, and he was seeking revenge on me. His plan included covering the road in oil so that I'd crash, but he didn't count on Terry Hill still being in the lead. What? Terry actually spun his Mustang a full 360 degrees after falling into Manny's trap. He managed to recover, but I took the advantage of his mistake and passed him. Better yet, after I passed Terry, I stayed in the lead. To win the title match, I had to beat him 3 times, and everything was looking good for me until I neared the end of my 3rd lap. At least until I noticed Manny standing near the finish line. And here comes the Gremlin to take his 3rd win in a row. Oh boy, this looks intense. I think we're about to see a new king tonight. As soon as I saw the oil, I slammed on the brakes, but there was too much of it, and the inevitable happened. Manny's dead, I see. I was so freaked out by the crash that I only later realized I'd pinned Manny between my Skyline and the truck, Marshall's truck. Apparently they'd been called in to deal with Manny, so I helped him in a way. Something else I didn't realize at the time was that I'd crossed the finish line before crashing, and that I won. I only learned that when I got back to the concession stands, where I received the hero's welcome. The king has fallen! The king has fallen! I repeat, the new king has fallen. All hail the new king of the mountain Gremlin, driving in the shredder. I swear that's the happiest I've been in a long time. I won $10,000 and now everyone knows what an amazing driver I was. We were about to leave until I noticed Terry Hill pulling up beside us. I wasn't sure what Terry wanted, but I started walking away from him just in case he was seeking revenge for what happened earlier. Then he braked, opened the door, got out his car, and you wouldn't believe who it really was. Seeing Dad was already surprised and I was not ready for his reaction to my performance. That's my son. Dad said he was really proud of me for winning the tournament, especially since it had been organized by his boss, Mr. Warren. Apparently he had first entered after Mr. Warren refused to give him a raise, and he'd been cleaning up the competition since then. Though having seen most of the other drivers, I don't think that's much of a feat. In all the confusion, I forgot to ask Dad why he wasn't in the Bahamas, and before I got the chance to ask him, Roger came up with an irresistible offer. Hey, why don't we throw a party to celebrate the new king of the mountain? I swear that was the best night of my life, where nothing mattered anymore. I didn't matter that I'd smashed the skyline or that I killed Manny because I made up with Roderick. I was surrounded by pretty girls and I now was $10,000 richer than I was last night. And you couldn't get much better than that. Wednesday. It's been a few days since I've won the tournament, and a surprising amount of stuff has happened since then. You know how Dad claimed he and Mom were going to the Bahamas? Well, that never happened. I only found out the day after I won, when Mom showed up at our front door. As it turned out, Dad tried to put Mom to sleep by giving her tons of crushed up pills, but his plan clearly didn't work. During previous tournaments, he told her he had to go on business trips, but she began to catch on the whole romantic getaway was supposed to prevent him from competing in the last tournament. Well, Dad wasn't the only one behind this plan, as his second cousin Terrence was helping him. He inspired the Terry Hill name and helped hide the Mustang in case of the last tournament. Apparently, he also gave Dad the whole idea of racing in King of the Mountain after the two of them got really drunk one night. Anyways, Mom's been really mad at Dad, and she's been forcing him to sleep on the sofa for the past few days. She also basically sold his Mustang and wrote an article in the paper that basically ratted him out. Wife's advice. How can you always know what your husband's doing? As many of your mothers can attest, your husband can likely become another child to you. Naturally, this means they're just as prone to lying and deceiving you as your actual children. My husband, Frank, and just continues. Mom also is mad at me and Roger for entering in the tournament. Roger got grounded for a month, while I got an entire year for running over Manny, even though I've told her countless times that it was an accident. While Dad and Roger have backed me up on my statement, she hasn't budged, and now I can only play video games when she's not at home. And if that wasn't enough, I wasn't allowed to keep the Skyline. Apparently, Uncle Gary got it in a drug trade, and the previous owner... the previous owner was a drug dealer. I've also heard that it wasn't allowed to be registered here, and that there were bags of drugs in the trunk while I had it. Thanks to his ill-fated money-making scheme, Uncle Gary's now in tons of legal trouble. I'm not sure how he's going to get out of that. After I learned what he did, I'm not lending him any money, especially given his previous track record of paying people back. On the plus side, I bought a used Volkswagen GTI with my winnings. It's not quite as fast as the Skyline, but it's way easier to drive, and most importantly, Holly told me she likes it. Just in case that wasn't good enough, Holly finally agreed to date me this Saturday. I guess Dad was right about how girls love athletes, because she agreed almost instantly, even with an immediately cheesy pickup line. I'm not reading that. I'd rather jump. I guess it's kind of questionable as to whether car racing is really a sport. Here, you guys could read it if you want. I'll leave it here. You could pause the video. Anyway, I guess it's kind of questionable as to whether car racing is really a sport, and most of the jocks hate that I've become popular thanks to that. But I've got a beautiful girlfriend. You couldn't care less about what those knuckleheads think. So, Run, how many muscles have you gained from driving in circles? I'm pretty sure I'm also behind the recent surge in street racing in the parking lot. Ever since I won King of the Mountain, guys have been terrorizing the place in the hopes of qualifying for the next tournament. If I knew this was going to happen, I probably would have just signed up for the football team instead. Sure, I'd probably get pummeled, but Holly seems to have a thing for underdogs, and she'd probably appreciate my efforts. In other news, I just had to thank Roger for the party we threw, and I gave him some of my money. He actually bought new equipment for his band, and with it, they actually wrote a song about me. I just think Loaded Diapers music was awful, but it's starting to grow on me lately, and the fact that I've got my own song helps that. Last thing I'd like to mention, I forgot about Rally, thanks to everything that happened during the weekend. I haven't actually seen him since Friday, and his parents wouldn't let me watch King of the Mountain after they found out what it was about. I only saw Rally again on Monday, when I drove over to his house to give him a ride to school. I told him everything that happened over the past few days, but he was pretty confused by it. I then told Rally I won tons of money and bought a cool new car. He told me he was happy for me, telling me something I never would have expected to hear. My dad says I'm mature enough to get a driver's license. Do you think you could teach me to drive with your new car? Definitely not letting Rally drive the GTI until I'm certain he won't crash. But we never sold the Caravan, and I realized I might have found a suitable purpose for it. And that's the end. That was good. I liked that. Stick around and subscribe for next week, hopefully, when I read Greg in Paris, my personal all-time favorite fan fiction that I'm going to be reading on my channel because it's my all-time favorite, obviously. So yeah, anyway, I'm out of here. Bye.